Hey guys, it's Susie for Bello's Designs. Today we're going to be talking about stamps. So whether you're a seasoned crafter or you're a beginner, I hope you stay tuned because we're going to be going over some polymer versus silicone. We will be talking about a certain ink. And I've heard so many comments about, I suck at stamping. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. So we're going to address that. We're going to talk about how to mount your stamps. We're also going to talk about cleaning your stamps and your blocks. And I'm also going to do a quick demo on how to re-ink your ink pads. Thank you, Gloria, for asking that question. She couldn't find a video out there, so we're going to do it today. All right, so stay with me. So let's talk about the difference between a polymer and a silicone stamp. Silicone stamps are a lot cheaper to make. They're also more flexible. Okay, this one happens to be a silicone. You can literally roll these up, fold them over, and they're going to bounce right back again. They're also thinner here, and I don't know if you can see this. This is a polymer, but the very edge of that is about half the thickness. So you want to be a little more careful when you're using a silicone stamp if it gets stuck to something because you can tear them. Now, this one is a polymer stamp. This happens to be a Lavinia. When you bend this, it's got so much more structure to it. Polymer stamps have a better structure. They have larger molecules if you want to get into chemistry and stuff. We're not going to talk about that, though. But they're also more expensive to make. But you get that fine detail in a polymer stamp that you're not going to be able to get in your silicone. Also, when you're stamping, when you press down, and you're pressing pretty good, especially some of the really solid stamps, polymer will still give you that fine line detail if you do that to a silicone stamp, because silicone is so soft, it will splay out and you're not going to get that nice, crisp, clean line that you do with a polymer stamp. So, there's your difference. Now, I don't know if you're anything like me, but when I place an order, I hold my breath until the day comes where that mail person drops my package in my mailbox. And what's the first thing I do? I run out to the mailbox. I grab that package, bring it in, rip it open, and look at all the fabulous things I just got. My next move, run to the craft room and let's play with our new toys. But let me ask you a question. Have you ever bothered to read the packaging on your stamps or any of your products? Now, I'm going to show you why I'm saying that. This is a Lavinia stamp. I took it out of the plastic so you won't get the glare. Right here, it actually says polymer stamp on it. Now, if you're buying silicones, I have yet to see somebody put silicone anywhere on their packaging. But polymer stamps are almost always marked polymer. Okay, then it talks about the care of polymer stamps. And this is true of all of your polymer stamps. Keep out of direct sunlight and away from bright lights. Avoid contact with solvent-based inks or cleaners. Clean with alcohol-free wipes. Okay, so I told you we were going to talk about an ink. We're talking about one ink, and that's this one. What is the second line on this ink pad? Solvent ink pad. What is a solvent? Well, it's a substance used to dissolve another substance. So, if you're using this on your polymer stamps, eventually it's going to break that polymer down. What it does to silicone, I'm not sure. But I know Lavinia specifically said do not use this on their stamps. I won't use this on any of my polymer stamps, ever. Now, here's another important, another important point. And this is why it's so important to read your labels, because I never did. I do now. You flip this over, and on the back, there is a caution. Now, I don't know if you can actually see this, but I'm going to read it to you. It says, use in ventilated area, a well-ventilated area. Do not inhale or ingest. Avoid contact with eyes and skin. Keep away from flame and store at room temperature. Keep out of reach of children. Now, I understand why you probably don't want your kids, getting into your inks because they're going to make a mess or get it stuck all over their skin, whatever. But the fact that this says do not inhale scares me more. Now, I actually watched a lady in a video that took her StazOn. And she says, I just love my StazOn. I could smell this stuff all day, as she held that ink pad up to her nose, sniffing it. She said, it smells like almonds. Now, when I mentioned that to my husband and my friend, 2 separate occasions, they weren't even in the house at the same time, so neither one heard the response. The first thing out of their mouth, both of them, was arsenic. Because arsenic smells like almonds. Now, I'm not saying that this has arsenic in it, but I do find it strange that it says use in a well-ventilated area and don't inhale it and don't come in contact with your skin or your eyes. So, something to consider. But now that you know, perhaps take some of your other products and actually read the labels. I know I never did. I own this because I wanted that green color. And this was the only ink pad I could find in that color at the time. But now I'm way more careful. So I hope you will be too. So let's move on. Now, I can't tell you how many times I have heard people say, I can't stamp. I suck at stamping. It never works out. I can't ever get a clean impression. Da da da. Well, let's talk about that. First off, if you've ever been in a room with somebody that actually does a lot of stamping and has done a lot of stamping, you'll notice they're going to have a ton of stamp blocks. Now, these things come in all different shapes, sizes, you name it. You're going to want a collection of them because the first thing you're going to want to do is match up your stamp, the size of your stamp, to your block. Okay, let me get these out of the way. Now, I went to a friend's house and I found out she was a stamp demonstrator. I told her I absolutely suck at stamping. I don't know why. I'm so bad at it. So she handed me a package of stamps and a block and said, show me. I'm like, okay. So I took my stamp, stuck it on my block, and she said, there's your problem. I didn't know what to do with that comment. I said, what do you mean there's my problem? She said, what you want to do when you mount your stamp is put it down on your surface. Center your block over that stamp. Because now by centering that stamp on your block, it doesn't move. But if you off-center that stamp and you're pushing down, you get a rocking. So it's really important to center your stamps. And the funny thing is, I rarely ever see anybody do that. You can get away with not centering. However, if you're not good at stamping, that might be why. Now, the reason why stampers have so many stamp blocks is you want to match your stamp block to your stamp. So, if I'm going to be using let's see. Let's find one that'll fit on that one too. Now, I have a word stamp. It's long. if I center that onto my block and I flip that over, I'm going to get this. That's going to cause you to not get a really good impression too if you're pushing down on one side more than the other. What you want to do is you want to put that on a long block. Okay, so putting our stamp down, center it. Now, that stamp fits better on this block. You don't get as much rocking back and forth. So you should get a really good impression. All right, so let's talk about cleaning. I know, nobody likes to clean. In this case, we're talking about stamps, though, and blocks. Now, I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, my stamps keep falling off of my blocks, and I don't know why. What am I doing? You know, I paid all this money for these great stamps, and I can't keep them on my blocks. Clean your blocks. It's not hard. This one's a little dirty now. Take some water, just spray it on. You can use a soft cloth. In this case, I'm using a paper towel. Just wipe them down. Now, if it gets too stained or there's stuff on it, just use a little bit of hand soap and wash it off. Now, some of your inks are going to stain your blocks, and I'm not going to use an abrasive to get that off. That's the worst thing you can do to your block. Don't use abrasives. Now, the other reason, and probably more reason, that your stamps keep falling off your blocks is when you handle your stamps. Silicone and polymer stamps are sticky. That's what keeps them stuck to your blocks. Now think about it. If you wear hand cream or use hand cream, it builds up. It gives you that nice soft feel. However, that oil is going to go on your stamps. The oil on your hands is going to end up on these stamps. Anything that is on your desk is going to get stuck on these stamps. You can see I had some glitter on my mat here. Now it's stuck on my stamp. What you want to do is keep your stamps clean. How do you do that? Now, I don't know if you've watched my other videos, but if you hear this noise in my video, what you don't know is after I stamp, I have a scrub pad sitting on the side of my desk. Now, I know Bello's Designs has a handheld one. Love these things. This thing has been with me since I started stamping many years ago. We don't want to talk about how long. Every day when I come into my room, first thing I do, spray it down with some water. Now, I stamp, and I'm using Versafine Clair, which is a permanent ink. You think, oh my goodness, you know. But as soon as you do your impression on your card, take that stamp, rub it back and forth. In this case, I have a two-sided one, so I can dry mine too. And clean your stamp. Now, a lot of times when I'm doing videos, I don't take the time to do that, but what I do before I go into my next segment is I will grab all of my stamps, run to the bathroom, and just rinse these under water. Just regular water. You don't want to use too cold or too hot, just tap. Now, if you get an extreme buildup, or in this case, I've got a little glitter, while you're running it under water, take a soft toothbrush. Yes, this one looks nasty. That's because I use this to clean my stamps. Take your soft toothbrush. Do not push hard, and just gently, ever so gently, rub that off. Okay? So, hopefully, that will save you some trouble. But the best thing I can tell you is wash your hands before you start doing your cards, and then you don't end up with as much junk on your stamps. So they'll stay cleaner, they'll stick better, and you'll be much happier. All right. Now, as I promised, I'm going to do a quick demo on how to re-ink your ink pads. Now, let's talk about this for just a second. Versafine Clair. Versafine Clair is a regular ink. Okay, it is a permanent ink, but in this bottle is just ink. If you're doing distressed oxides, which is a hybrid ink, you're going to hear little beads in the bottle. That's because it's a hybrid. You have to mix those together. So shake your bottle really, really good before you re-ink your ink pad, because otherwise you're going to end up with just one of the layers of whatever they put in this ink and not all of them that have to work together. And I know Del Bello's Designs carries all the re-inkers for the Versafine Clairs along with all their ink pads, and the same with the distressed oxides. So if you're in need of a re-inker or an ink pad, check out Del Bello's Designs. They have all of them. But because we're in the holiday season and I'm making so many holiday cards, I've already re-inked all of my ink pads before I thought of doing this segment. So I'm going to grab an old ink pad. Now, I don't know how wet, how dry this ink pad is. I haven't used it in a very long time. I'm going to grab my re-inker. And you're going to want some form of a plastic spreader. Now, I don't know if you get junk mail the way I do. I'm always getting junk mail. So, a lot of them come with these plastic cards. These are perfect for spreading your ink. They're just plastic. Now, this also is a regular ink pad. It's not a hybrid. And you can see I already got ink on my fingers. But what you want to do is, first off, make sure that whatever ink pad you're going to re-ink, that your re-inker matches that ink pad. Because there is nothing worse than going and re-inking the entire ink pad just to find out you used the wrong bottle. Yes, that does happen. So, pop your lid off. Take your top off. Now, you're going to take this nozzle and stick it down onto your ink pad. And you're going to give it just the slightest squeeze. Matter of fact, a lot of them you don't even need to squeeze too much. And you're just going to go back and forth in a zigzag fashion till you get all the way across your ink pad. Then you're going to turn it and you're going to go the other way. And you can see how fast that ink is getting soaked up in there. So just keep doing this, go back and forth, and you want to keep repeating this process until that ink really starts to slow down. Now, you don't want to get your ink pad too wet because you can ruin an ink pad. Very first time I tried this, I did what I just did now and stopped. And I went to reuse my ink pad the next day. Well, it still wasn't working good. So I did it again. Next day, it still wasn't working good. Called a friend of mine that was the demonstrator. I asked her, I said, how much ink do you put in these? And she said, oh, about half a bottle. I went, okay. Since I had a brand new bottle of re-inker, I went and kept working in half a bottle of ink. Let it set. Next morning, my ink pad was all warped and ruined. So, word to the wise, don't over-ink your ink pads. If you start seeing that ink setting up on top, you've got too much. You just want to ink it until it's just slowly going down, but it's still going down. All right? Now you're going to take your plastic card and you're just going to scrape that across your ink pad. Okay? And you're going to go all the way around. Just keep turning your ink pad, giving it a few scrapes. What this is doing is leveling your ink. It's helping to level your ink. Okay? So just do it a few times. Wipe off your card. And you can save that for next time. That's why we don't use our good credit cards or insurance cards or whatever other hard card you have. Now, let that set overnight or for several hours, because by letting it set, it's going to level the rest of that ink out. so that your pad will be nice and even, just like when you bought it. Okay? So cover it up, let it set, and that's how you re-ink your ink pad. So I really hope that I helped you with any issues you may be having. Again, if there's any of the Versafine Clair or the Distressed Oxide inks, Bello's Designs carries a full line of all of them. Check your ink pad, see if you need any. So, if you like this video, I hope you give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more like it, I hope you hit subscribe. But until next time, stay crafty.